Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Haaland, for being here with us again today. Wanted to pick up a little bit where we left off yesterday. We were talking about national monuments. I think it's important for us to remember that, as I mentioned yesterday, disproportionate share of all national monuments that have been designated on land in the United States over the last 25 years, about 28%, as I recall, have been designated in Utah. In the past, we've had reforms made to the Antiquities Act at times when one state or another has been picked on relentlessly and disproportionately. One significant reform occurred in 1950 when Congress reacted to a decision made a few years earlier by President Franklin D. Roosevelt when he proclaimed the Jackson Hole National Monument after Congress had declined to expand the Grand Teton National Park. And he undertook similar action by presidential proclamation under the Antiquities Act. So Congress responded to that and basically exempted Wyoming out of future national monument designations. You had Congress responding again a few decades later in 1980 and making significant Antiquities Act reforms specific to the state of Alaska, which had itself found itself the victim of excessive national monument designation. This had occurred after President Jimmy Carter had proclaimed 15 new national monuments, even after Congress had adjourned without passing a major Alaska lands bill that was strongly opposed within the state. And so there's something of a pattern here when there's a pattern of overaction by presidential administrations to declare new monuments in a manner contrary to the wishes of the host state. Congress eventually reacts and responds. We talked a little bit yesterday about the ping pong effect. The fact that one of the unfortunate things about this is that there's a tug of war in which the status of the Antiquities Act monument designations in these states can easily become something of a ping pong ball. It hasn't happened a lot in the past, but the trend has now begun, where you've seen one president designate a monument, another president restrict that monument's size, and then you now see a move by the Biden administration to expand perhaps to, or some have suggested even in excess of, the original boundaries of the Bears Ears National Monument or the Grand Staircase National Monument. There's understandably a good reason for us to explore a legislative solution. Could you understand, however, why some of us might be concerned about legislatively designating one or more of these national monuments without some type of protection for our state, limiting for the future the amount of national monuments that could be designated by a presidential proclamation? Or alternatively, could you understand why it'd be difficult for us to negotiate with that without some kind of actual deal, some kind of protection and assurance that we won't end up losing the whole negotiation anyway, as long as the president may, through the stroke of the presidential pen, undo all of our negotiations?
Senator, I completely understand. I understand and I respect your position, and I mean, I can't fully understand because I'm not you and Utah is not my state, but I do respect your position, and I want you to know that if I am confirmed, I am ready to sit down and talk with you and the stakeholders in Utah. I know that tribal nations, it's their ancestral homeland in some respects. I would be honored to get everyone together and talk about these issues, but I want you to know that I fully respect your position, and I want to perhaps work to find a solution, and I truly do understand what you're saying, and I appreciate you sharing that with me.
So if you're confirmed, would you be willing to come to my state before any action's taken under the Antiquities Act in my state and meet with some groups of people you might not otherwise hear from, meet with groups of people who I believe have not been listened to as much in the past?
I absolutely would, Senator. I would never pass up an opportunity to go to Utah.
What do you think we can do about multiple use? Multiple use was the objective of FLIPMA. It was the promise made. There are many occasions when management for multiple use really ends up just being restricted use. This often results in diminished economic activity on the part of states, and especially within rural communities, within public land states. What would you do to enhance multiple use and to make sure it actually happens?
Well, you've talked a lot, Senator Lee, about folks on the ground, about local communities weighing in on these things. And I know that multiple use is, yes, that is a tenet of our public lands. And in some places you can have more multiple use, and other places you can't. So I look to strike that balance. I think it'll be important.
And do you think that President Biden's decision to issue a moratorium on oil and gas leasing is consistent with principles of multiple use? And if so, how is that consistent? And what will you do to make sure that people have access to these things and also to access to a critical mineral supply chain?
Thank you, Senator Lee. The pause that President Biden has put on the new permits pending review, the review's not going to last forever. The review will, as soon as it's done, of course, having that input with everyone, we'll be able to move forward after that. I think that this pause will, it's just that, it's a pause. It's not going to be a permanent thing where we're saying we're restricting all these lands from something.
I appreciate that it's not permanent. If it is in fact not permanent, we'd love to know how non-permanent it is and roughly what the time horizon would look like. This has very significant impact. It might seem like an insignificant thing for someone who doesn't live there and whose job doesn't depend on it, or whose job doesn't depend on someone else's job in that field. But for many of these communities, it's their lifeblood. And it's also something upon which our national energy security often depends.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.